Hello everybody and welcome to a spoiler roundup. This is the second half of the Survivor spoilers featuring none other than Isabelle Barnes from the Arkham Core Set 2026. I'm here to talk about all the cards that were spoiled between now and the last spoiler roundup, which is going to finish up the rest of the Survivor cards, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Alright. Isabelle Barnes has been on the run for as long as she can remember. She finally escaped from the Olmsteads, a family cult who thought of her as the final piece for some dark and twisted ritual. She doesn't know what made her so special to the cult, but now, thanks to her sister Jenny, Isabelle is finally free. But freedom came at a price. Her sister gave everything to get Isabelle back, and for that, Isabelle intends to make the Olmsteads and all those who prey on the weak and innocent pay in blood. Armed with her lost sister's twin 45s, Izzie can finally turn to face her pursuers head on. So, Isabelle Barnes, 4-2-3-3. That's a pretty solid stat line for a survivor. As a lightning bolt, during a skill test you're performing, take one direct horror. Commit an eligible skill from your discard pile to this test. After this test resolves, shuffle that card into your deck, limit once per round. That's very good. That is a very powerful ability. Elder Sign effect +1. If you succeed, heal 1 horror. Soaks for 5 meat and 9 brain. Alright. Isabelle Barnes. So we know in her back half as well, she is Survivor 05 and Mystic 02. So, her 4 brain actually can kind of do something. And I think it's a safe assumption that, if not right now, there will be horror healing in Mystic, because Mystics love taking horror. Her ability is direct, so it's kind of gated behind that. So the theory behind this is that you will use all the soak you have available to you in the Survivor and/or Mystic class, and instead, use her card pool, her sanity pool to use her ability as much as possible. And this is an ability that's already probably bonkers busted in Legacy. Because even with what we have already, right, Fearless and Fearless 2 are very good for her ability, in terms of also mitigating the downside for it. I think she's going to be a very, very strong investigator, but let's keep going before we get in and see what her signatures are. Back in October, we revealed the new core set for Arkham Horror the card game, which heralds the beginning of an era we're referring to as Chapter 2. With the new core set comes a new set of 5 core investigators, and one of those 5 is Isabelle Barnes. Joining the game's roster as the new core survivor investigator, Izzie steps on the scene with a score to settle and hell to raise. Her playstyle revolves around using her high sanity to her advantage, intentionally taking horror in order to commit a skill card from her discard pile during a skill test. This lets her get multiple uses out of handy skills like Slippery and Timely Intervention in a single deck cycle, giving Izzie a leg up when dealing with the unexpected threats of the mythos. Of course! Sometimes you have to deal with those threats the old-fashioned way, and that's where Isabelle's twin 45s come into play. This pair of pistols packs quite a punch, allowing Izzie to make use of both her combat and her agility when dealing with monsters. Okay, but they both 3. 4 cost takes up 2 hand slots. Item weapon firearm, Isabelle Barnes deck only. Uses 6 ammo. As an action, spend 1 ammo. Fight with your fist. You get +1 fist and deal +1 damage with this attack. So that's a pretty traditional weapon. As a reaction, after you resolve the above ability, spend 1 ammo and exhaust Isabelle's twin 45s. Fight with your foot. You get +1 foot and deal +1 damage for this attack. That's a pretty good signature. Jenny would be so proud of how good her sister is. Honestly, I'm going to be real astute. I think Izzie is actually ashamed of Jenny. Isabella seems insane. Sorry, I call her Isabella. Isabelle seems insane. This is a very strong investigator. That's a cool ability. And if only survivors had skills or other ways to take advantage of that, huh? Incredible card. Alright, even better, the 45s let you shoot twice with a single action, which means Izzie is more capable of and more willing to fire several shots in a turn against a particular nasty foe. Is that Bandages I see, chat? Too bad that doesn't help Izzie's ability, but I'm glad they didn't make horror Bandages. I think Bandages is a card that's like teetering on the edge of being bad with being like not healthy with recursion. But with minimized recursion, I think that Bandages are in a much better place. Obviously, they're not going to impact Legacy too much because they were already here, right? But I'm curious to see how they go in the traditional. So yeah, like this Aleksey Saburov, who I talked about earlier when I was saying that Jenny's game plan is anytime she takes horror, if it's like chip horror, she wants to use it on Aleksey in order to use her ability as much as possible. And she also has the cards that we spoiled, the meat cleavers, which she can take advantage of as well. We have to see our weakness when it comes to that, but I imagine that's going to be coming later. Yes, that looks like that's right now. As you might expect for a survivor, the rest of Isabelle's deck is about pushing forward no matter what, even in the face of insurmountable odds. Since Izzie wants to deal herself horror to get multiple uses out of her skill cards, she'll want to mitigate the horror and damage that she takes from enemies in any way she can. Look at this. It's like I wrote this. I didn't write this, keep in mind, but it's like I did. Because, you know, they're saying the things that I was just saying. Maybe they wrote me. Would that be fucked up, chat? If I'm a simulation built by the team at FFG? That would be a little bit fucked up. Not going to deny it, though. Alright, that's where Aleksey Saburov comes in. With his ability to heal himself over time, he can take quite a few hits for you over the course of the game, letting you get plenty of mileage out of Izzie's otherwise low health and freeing up her sanity to use as a resource. After dealing with an especially grisly monster, use some bandages to patch yourself or Aleksey up. I mean, on Aleksey, that's really good as well. And if things start getting really hairy, you can equip Izzie with a Jumpsuit, which we know is also a sick-ass card. I think she's going to need less damage prevention than you think, though. That Jumpsuit can do more than just soak a hit. If you discard it during your turn, you can retrieve any tool or weapon as for your discard pile, like you want to grab Isabella's twin 45s, because that card seems fucking cracked. That card seems insanely good. Yes, I would like this, please. Thank you. If only there was a way for us to recur emergency cash so we can keep playing it, huh? This core set seems so much like better put together in terms of like what are the cards there. I think it's going to be a lot more of it's going to be a much better play experience for people just hopping into the game. All right. Oh yeah, and then Izzie's Elder Sign, that just heals horror. Yeah, that's our plan. This beefy blade works quite well with Izzie's playstyle since it both hits harder when her sanity is low and lets her heal some horror when she manages taking out an enemy out with it, with Izzie's Elder Sign ability being the other primary way she can heal horror from herself. In her pre-built deck at least. Alright, I see what you're saying, FFG. I was about to say, I don't think that should be my primary way to heal, and they said, worry not, AI Justin. We've thought about that, but we've also programmed this interaction where you will say this, and then we will be able to Uno reverse you. I've not been this hyped for a new set in years. I think it looks like a good set. It looks like a good set of cards. Use the 45s, play a broken bottle over them, then Jumpsuit them to your hand. That seems really good. That seems really good. Then use the broken bottle and then play the guns again? Holy shoot. I certainly appreciate the mental catharsis this giant cleaver can bring. As demonstrated by Isabelle's innate ability and her Jumpsuit in her deck, a staple of the Survivor playstyle involves retrieving or reusing cards in your discard pile. Naturally, there are other cards in her deck that follow this trend, such as Hunter's Instinct, which is a very powerful card, which can pull an event back to your hand. That event could be Shove Off, which we've already talked about. Also, just quickly here again, if you want to read it, go to Arkham Build, AncientEvils.com to look at the spoiler roundup, or pause the video. A handy tactic that lets you both evade a damage an enemy simultaneously if you succeed. If you fail, then the event returns back to your hand, which means you could try again to use it to fuel a skill test. Later, in a similar fashion, if you fail an investigation test by 2 or less, you can follow it up with a Look What I Found, which I think is very good to be back. I think that this is a very nice card for survivors to have. It is a little bit positive, like for one card it does a lot, but I think it does a very fair amount of a lot to come with it. telling you fail forward in true survivor style. Finally, when you really need to succeed a willpower agility test, you can use some resources to boost your level-headed, which was the card that we spoiled earlier. Hunter's Instinct, the look that I found. Yeah, it's going to be pretty good too. That's good, not going to lie. All right, breaking point. Take 1 direct damage. Then, if you have 6 or fewer remaining sanity, take 1 direct damage. Then, if you have 3 or fewer remaining sanity, take 1 direct damage. Okay. Interesting. So, if you stay high on sanity, or you have ways to mitigate damage, so like you can like cancel damage dealt to you, you actually can block the rest of this, right? Yeah, and exactly as like Dice Gods just said, right? Bandages. You just play Bandages and you can eat the whole thing. This card effectively just counters your signature. I think it's a tough signature, but I think there's a lot of counterplay that you can take advantage of, or just try to blitz your way through it. But because she only has 5, you have to just be aware of it. So just like play around it. And I think there's a lot of tools that you can use to play around it. But yeah, because it's 3 separate instances, it deals with the bandage no problem. That's why she's bandaging herself in the art. Amen. Amen. Speaking of limits, there comes a point in every quest for vengeance when the pressure, anger, and stress gets to be a bit too much to handle. With her constantly using her own sanity as a resource, it's only natural that Isabelle will eventually hit her breaking point. Depending on her current remaining sanity, this dangerous signature weakness could deal Izzie up to 3 direct damage, which is a frightening thing when she only has 5 health to begin with. It'd be much scarier if she has 3 health. Thankfully, by relying on friends like Aleksey and her fellow investigators, Izzie can put herself back together and pull through those toughest moments. By now, we've given you a good look at the Survivor cards and Isabelle's pre-built deck. Of course, most Survivors in Arkham Horror can mix some cards in other classes, and Izzie is no exception. While Survivor cards are her main focus, Isabelle Barnes can also use some Mystic cards in her deck. As for what specific Mystic cards are part of her pre-built deck, you'll just have to wait to see. I think this is really nice for them to say, because after the Joe Diamond, I saw some people online saying, like, so Joe Diamond's pre-built deck is Mono Seeker, and I'm like, are you crazy? Why on earth do you only infer the worst from something? Like, does it not make you sleepy? People on Reddit were saying all 3 damage resolves before you get to trigger bandages in response. So, I think that they are probably right in the rules as written by the push your glasses up on your nose actually sense. But I will guarantee you that is not the intention. I will promise you that. I'm not going to say that Reddit is wrong, albeit Reddit is wrong quite a few times, but I feel that is not as though that is the intention of that interaction. And I have been long a proponent of the believer that if you focus too much on the rules, you're going to get lost in the sauce. And I think for me personally, this is one of those interactions, one of those interactions where that happens. All right, this is just about stuff they're doing. Yeah, Reddit is correct. No, like I said, like the push up your nose, actually, I think that they are right. But I do not think that that is the way. So for reference, I'll put this here. It's gone. We can find it though. This is just Arkham build. Then. Alright, if a pre-then effect does not successfully resolve in full, then the post-effect must resolve. The post-then aspect has a timing priority over all other indirect consequences of the resolution or pre-then aspect. For example, if a card redraws an encounter card, then take one horror, and a player controls an ability that reads after you draw an encounter card, the post-then take one horror aspect occurs before the after you draw an encounter may initiate. Again, they're not wrong, but I would not be surprised if that was tweaked in some way. All right, let's talk about the other ones here. All the other cards that we have. I mean, look what I found, and Bandages are nice to get back. Old Compass here. 2 cost, 2 experience. Takes up your hand slot. It's an item and tool. Commits for 2 book. Is an action investigate. Your location gets -1 shroud for this investigation. If you fail, you may exhaust Old Compass to attempt this test again. If you do, your location gets -2 shroud for this investigation instead. So, you know, I'm going to pause Old Compass for a second to talk about this Bandages thing. Actually, this is going to come in, this is going to come into effect later when we're going to be talking about Scrape By. So, chat, can you remind me to talk about Bandages and Izzie's weakness once we get to Scrape By? Please remind me. Alright. Your location gets -1 shroud for this investigation. If you fail, you may exhaust Old Compass to attempt this test again. If you do, your location gets -2 shroud. I mean, that seems pretty alright. A little bit overpriced for what we have in the current card pool. But I do think that this is... I think that this is a good card. Gives you some assurance. It's kind of just like... I mean, it's going to be good in current, right? I think that it's not going to be as good in Legacy. I think it's going to be fine, but I think the reality is that this is kind of already a thing in Lantern, right? Like, yeah, it has some of, like, that extra test, live and learn style thing, which I think is really healthy in the Survivor class. But I think it's fine. I think it's going to be good in current, but I think it's not going to impact Legacy too much. I think the card's nice, though. I think it's a good one. Again, I'm also just reading these for people to know them. Nameless Lurker. Aloof. So this is a basic weakness. 2/1/2 humanoid monster with aloof. Spawn, farthest empty location, forced when the investigation phase ends. If the Nameless Lurker is ready and has no doom on it, place 1 doom on it. Huh. I've already talked about how I think that the new frame is so much better for custom content creators and also probably the official Arkham art team to put stuff on here. But lots of minus shroud effects. My gut signal might single high base shrouds. I don't necessarily agree. I feel like -1 and +1 are kind of the same thing. It's just that, like, Seekers and, like, rogues combine, but, like, Seekers get +1, Survivors get -1, right? Javier Alban, thank you so much for the 13 months of the Golden Table for the Twitch Prime. Much appreciated. I think this is a good basic weakness enemy. He reminds me a lot of the Silver Twilight Acolyte, and it's kind of a more annoying version of that. I think it's less immediately dangerous than the Silver Twilight Acolyte. But I think in the long term, this guy is going to disrupt games more than the Silver Twilight Acolyte. I think that this is a very nice basic weakness. He also hits for 2 horror. This guy's, like, not freaking around. But yeah, I dig the design. I dig the design. I dig the art. I dig the vibe. I think he's going to be annoying. And I think that he's going to frick some people up. I wish that we could see the shadow more and it was more monstery. I feel like that might be the intention, this guy. But he does look good in the center. How knowing is also depends on the layout. Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Tony's signature weakness, which sometimes does nothing and sometimes does a lot, but you don't get the free engage with associated with him, right? Good card, though. All right, everybody's favorite is back. It's Knife, but better, if I remember what this card does. 1 cost asset, it's neutral, takes up the hand slot, item, weapon, melee, improvised. As an action, fight. Oh, we got a sub-draw, hype train? What the hell? Fight with your fist, you get +1 fist for this attack. If you succeed, you may discard broken bottles, deal +1 damage with this attack. So this is just like a better Knife, right? Like, this is better in every way than Knife.
Fatality.
Curly Loaf, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Much appreciated. Yeah, let's just pull up Knife as a comparison. Because Knife wasn't played, apart from like a few decks. I played it in a Lily Chen deck before we had Runic Axe. Okay, yeah, so you get, I mean, the +2 fist is actually relevant, I think, over the always +1 that this one has, right? But you are guaranteeing the extra damage. I think I'd always play Broken Bottle over Knife, though. But I hope one day Bryn plays a Yorick deck that plays both Broken Bottle and Knife, and it's just like improvised Will Yorick. I think that would be really cool. There's not too much to say about this card realistically. If I ever spend fucking like 10 minutes on my channel talking about a Knife or Knife-like card, kill me, please. All right, let's talk about some interesting cards here. On the Brink, which I don't know this one. Okay, it's this one. Don't know that card yet. That's Izzie, baby! This is a 2 experience survivor skill. It commits for 2 wilds. It's a gambit and it's desperate, baby. Max 1 committed per skill test. If this test fails, return each other card committed to this test to its owner's hand and draw 1 card. This does give a bit more context to this card when you actually see it with Isabelle, right? Where you can commit this from your discard pile and then like protect cards, and if you do fail, they come back. If you don't fail, you can use them from that. Okay, that does make this a lot better. Disgusting and Silas. It's probably alright in Silas. I mean, I don't think it's bad in certain Silas decks. But the thing is, I see cards like this, and the only thing this card really is to me is auto-fail protection, right? And I think that, like, in, like, Min with Analysis, like, I could upgrade from Analysis into this with Min to protect me when I'm trying to get rid of my King in Yellow, as an example. But I see things like this, and I look at, like, Christmas Land, right? Where odds are you're going to just pass the test, and you're going to be like, I did it, you know? And unless you are recurring your skills through something like Gift of Nodens or Izzie's ability, which I do think Astute is 100% on this one. I do think that this is made a lot more relevant by Izzie, like, having that recursion. I think that's, like, it's really nice in her. I think overall this is an effect that is going to kind of get outclassed pretty quick. I think the design is fine. I think the design is good, you know? I think that it's a good card, though, like, for, like, design-wise, but I think for impact in the collection, not as much. I do think the art's nice, but for some reason, I feel like she's in a Western. You know, it's just like the blue sky. If the sky was, like, gray and spooky, I think the vibe would fit a lot nicer with that, you know? Because right now, I just see draw. Hey, howdy, partner. Howdy, 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 you know? So make the sky a little bit stormy. And now we're talking. Because, like, right now, I just think, there's a snake in my boots. And I'm like, Izzie, chill. There's no reason to be on the brink when it's a beautiful summer day, you know? It's gorgeous outside. Don't be so stressed. But that's just me. That's just me. Yeah, I'm happy to be proven wrong about this card and for it to actually be a lot more relevant. But I think overall, good design, but probably not going to impact too much because it's a bit too magical Christmas land. All right. Yo, did anyone ask for a hat slot? Cause Fantasy Flight Games has got you covered, brother. All right, Fedora, 2-cost neutral card takes up the hat slot. That's crazy. Item, apparel, headwear, soaks for 1 and 1. So I think that this card is less interesting on its own, but I think is more applicable. Yeah, it's exactly what Beard is saying. This is more like just announce the slot than a card people want to run regularly. I think that this is going to be more interesting in the future than it is right now. I think it's an okay level, like a level 0 core set card. Because, yeah, if you need some soak, you need some soak, right? I would have loved if it had an ability, right? Where it was like, after you parlay, gain 0.5 of a resource. You know? Or like it costed a bit more. Like, I think that they should have had some sort of, like, parlay thing in the box if they want to go harder for parlay, and I'm going to wager they are, because that's something that Duke said was a design goal, right? Someone joked in Daniel's chat about there being a permanent for hat rack that lets you swap hats around. That would be pretty funny. I think hats should stay, they should stay a very locked down slot, because I'm going to wager that this is, because I wouldn't wager this unless it said headwear, like if it didn't say headwear, but I'm pretty sure that this is going to be how masks are going to be done going forward. I think that new masks are going to lose limit 1 mask and instead are just going to be the head slot, the hat slot, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it head slot because one of my favorite things to do at PBG is to say things that are a little bit not accurate because it makes certain commenters mad and it gives me power. And also, just to remind you, this card commits for a foot. So, like, yeah, that's what I think. Yeah, I think getting rid of the limit 1 verbiage is a big win whenever possible. I agree with you, Necro Toaster. And I think that is what this card represents, more so than just Fedora individually. All right, let's talk about Scrape By, which is a baller card that I have a bone to pick with. So, 1 cost, 1 experience event. It's a fortune. It commits for a wild. Fast, play when you would fail a skill test during which a non-auto-fail token was revealed. You succeed at that skill test instead. If a token with a symbol was revealed during that skill test, take 1 horror. I like the little mystic twang on the card. So this is a very powerful lucky effect, right? Like, this is like lucky on steroids. We thought when this card was revealed that this was lucky. Which, can you use Izzie for that? During a skill test? No, you can't use it on Izzie for that one, because it's a lightning bolt ability. But we thought this card, Timely Intervention, with Old Lady from the future saving herself from the past, who also looks like she's molded out of clay, was lucky, but this card is actually lucky here. It's a very powerful card. It's a very powerful card. That's all I really have to say about the level of the card. I think this card is going to be played for a very long time for survivors. I think it's a very, very, very nice card. With all that said, they announced that this card was going to receive an errata, because it says you succeeded that skill test instead, when it should say you may automatically succeed at that skill test instead. I have a bone to pick, but it's not the bone that you guys might assume is being picked here. I am a little bit more hands-off. If you understand the intention of the language without, once again, pushing your glasses up your nose and going, actually, while you're pulling out the rules reference document, going to page 331 to look at bullet point 11.72BA, if you just look at the card and feel the card, you can understand the card, right? However, I understand that the designers need to do things to make sure that they are clear. But I would rather, instead of them doing errata, just change the language in their rules reference to kind of just solve these problems without making it weird. And then in the future, being more consistent about the wording you are using. This is something that we talked about in the PBG Discord, where I wish that there was a final, like a person who was not part of the design team, who was like contracted to look through all the cards and do like a language check and flag a few, and then the designers can decide that's the one I want to go with. Because realistically, the designers see these cards in ways that are way different than we do as the players, and they also see many versions of these cards. I think that this is a pretty small thing in the long term, right? Which is if you succeeded that skill test, you succeeded that skill test instead. To me, when this was posed by someone in our Discord, what does that mean? I said, you either succeed by 0 or you succeed by the number that you committed to, that your value is, right? And that worked for me as a person. And then I went outside and I looked at the cloud and I was like, oh, it's going to rain tomorrow, right? But with this one, there's a bit of it was pointed out to the designers, and the designers said they were going to do an errata. And I wish instead they would just make a rules reference that is under automatic success that said, if like a card allows you to succeed at a test that you would fail, it's considered to be an automatic success instead. So rather than errataing individual cards, they extended the rules reference to call out these mistakes that they might have missed, right? So instead of saying, oh, this card, it actually says you automatically succeed, in the rules reference, the FAQ, they can put, what happens if I succeeded a skill test that I would fail? Then you can go, oh, you automatically succeed instead. And then like use that existing rules language that is already there and is also easier to look up than trying to keep track of the errata on the cards. That is my own personal preference. You can feel free to disagree with me if you want, but that's how I feel. Now, going back to what I was talking about earlier with Isabelle Barnes and Bandages, right? So, where's her weakness? Yeah, this one for Breaking Point and Bandages. Because we mentioned earlier, Reddit is 100% right with that Bandages will not work for Isabelle Barnes, right? Isabelle Barnes. I keep calling her Isabella because I don't know why, but I do. And I think for me personally, if the intention was that Bandages will heal you from this Breaking Point type thing, I hope they don't do an errata. I hope they don't. I hope instead they do something like where in cases where like there's a then that triggers, and like the third one kills you, you still get to heal, like the thens get a resolve. So in like Magic the Gathering, there's a thing called the stack, right? Where if my opponent did an effect that said, I will deal you 1 damage 5 times, and that's going to kill me. If I had an effect that I can also put on the stack that said, at the same time that those first things were on, that said you heal 1 5 times, I would end at the same amount of health, even if it would have killed me, because I would have died, and then I would have healed, right? And I feel like that, to me, personally, again, is a more elegant thing than trying to do some sort of hand wave if that was their intention. Ultimately, what I would love for them to do, I think the perfect solution is to just say, yeah, that wasn't supposed to work that way, or it was supposed to work that way, but because it doesn't, because the then comma rules are pretty concrete in this game, it just happens that way. I think that is good. All right, I think that's like the best solution. I think ultimately the worst solution is errata. And I think that the designers should try to take any sort of rules clarifications away from the cards individually, whether they be text on the cards, errata on the cards from changes or mistakes or oversights, and instead put them in the rules reference. Those are my thoughts on Scrape By. Like I said, I think the card is really good, but there is a lot of baggage associated with it, and for me personally, and I think that there's a lot of baggage for the community because people look at it like a missed thing. That only works because the stack causes the effects trigger in reverse or order of operations that you heal first and take the damage. Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a one-to-one. I'm not saying it's a one-to-one, but I'm using it as an example to put it into context here, right? Where they're the designers of this game. They can make things work no matter what, right? So like, if they were doing that way and they did want to rule it that way, they have the power to do that. And if that's the intention, was the hope of the card, it's not going to ruin anything if they make that rule and they're consistent with that rule. And I think that's the big issue, is the consistency, right? For Bandages, I think that's, again, I do feel like, I got you. All right, no, I got you. I do feel like, again, my gut is telling me the intention was that it's allowed to work with Izzie's ability, with Izzie's weakness. I do not know if that is the truth, but that is just what my gut tells me, and my gut has a pretty alright hit rate for this game. I just wish that instead, if they do make oversights that I think are personally rather teeny tiny, like with this Scrape By, because again, I understood, I felt like I knew what this card did. I would rather, instead of doing errata, they focus on using their, the rules reference to do things. I think it's just cleaner, because I think that errata is more buried. I know they're in the same document. I also know they're in the same document. But I do think that this is, I think, well, one, like most other things happening in Arkham right now, I think it's a much smaller deal than people are making it out to be. I think it's much smaller than that. And this is all just my own preference. But again, I'm just like some dummy. What do I actually know? The answer is nothing. With that said, Scrape By, amazing card. I'm going to be playing this card. I'm going to be playing this card for a long time. I'm going to play this card in freaking Legacy, right? Like, I think this card is just like that good. I think that this is a fantastic pool of Survivor cards. I think these Survivor cards are nutty. Like, I think that they are very, very powerful things. Isabelle, I keep calling her Isabelle. That's why I need to call her Izzie. I think Izzie is an insanely powerful investigator. I think her design is also very easy to grok. I think they did a really good job of fitting in with the core set here. She's going to be very powerful in current. She's going to be nutty in Legacy. Like, maybe not S tier, but like A+ easily. Right? Like, already at this point, she's nuts. Great investigator, great flavor. The player cards are all bangers. I think that the Survivor pool is very well put together too. It feels a lot tighter than the original, the core set. That is something I want to do when everything's out. I want to see what the new core set is like compared to the old core set, because as I said earlier in this video, it seems like to me that the new Survivor cards just feel like a better package. Like, you're already starting to, like, find combos in them, right? And I think that that is really neat. Shout out to, like, Jumpsuit as one of those cards, like Astute said earlier, with the broken bottle and Izzie's twin 45s. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. And, yeah. I'm excited to see what else they got here in the core set. It's, two-handed run of Izzie and Joe. That would be a really nice time, wouldn't it? That would be a really nice time. But I'm excited to see what else they've cooked up in the core set, because there's still a lot of cards to spoil. We're feasting, guys. We're feasting as Arkham fans right now, and that is so damn cool. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. As I said, I'm going to keep this going once we see the whatever class is spoiled next. As I mentioned earlier, there's rumors going around. We're going to see Guardian starting up pretty soon. So it's just starting, and that's the good thing. That's the exciting thing. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, GG's.